District. Thank you all for being here today, and a special thanks to Chris Johnson, who's going to tell us about Vesterheim's new expansion plans and energy efficiency. Take it away, Chris.
All right, thank you very much. This is, first of all, I'm thankful for the opportunity to come and present to your group, even if it's virtually here. I want to provide a little bit of background about our project. Actually, it's two project is part of our overall campaign. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of context with that. And throughout, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the project itself, the projects, I should say, as well as some of the approaches that we used in the design to address sustainability that we thought worked well for us in approaching this. So that's my approach here. I think my presentation will probably take, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up to questions, comments that people have at that time. So that's kind of the game plan. Let me share my screen. Let's see here. Everybody see that all right? All right, good. So first of all, my name is Chris Johnson, and I serve as the president and CEO for Vesterheim. Vesterheim is the National Norwegian-American Museum and Folk Art School. We have a history that dates back to 1877. We started up on the campus of Luther College as a small collection. And over the years, we grew to the point where we moved into Decorah, into the present, we call it the hotel building, the old Arlington House Hotel, which is most people consider the museum. And then over time, Vesterheim has expanded into other parts of its operation. We established a folk art school back in the 1960s, where people could come and take classes from not only Norwegian folk instructors, but other instructors, and take classes in wood carving and weaving and painting and a variety of other folk arts. We have an active travel program as well, where we take people on trips to Norway, where we kind of get people behind the scenes. We have a magazine that comes out twice a year. We are very active on social media, on YouTube, things like that. And so we're more than maybe meets the eye. And sometimes people in Decorah are often surprised, like how much we actually do. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today are a couple projects that Vesterheim is working on through what we call our Strong Roots, Bold Future campaign. And this is a look at how we can enhance our campus to really meet the needs for future generations here. And the name of this campaign is really highlights a couple things. First of all, the Strong Roots is, Vesterheim has this long history, as I said, that dates back to the 1870s. And over time, many people have been instrumental in shaping that this organization. People who've helped to launch the folk art school, people who put stronger focus on our collections, all different aspects like that. We have a very strong membership program. We have over 5,000 members scattered across, the United States and even internationally. So that's part of our Strong Roots. Our Bold Future, though, is really thinking about, we want to be a museum that also is adaptable for future generations, and understanding that with each passing year, we're further from that immigrant experience that served as sort of the spark to start this museum. The people who started the collections up at Luther College, they were first generation immigrants from Norway, many of those folks. And nowadays we're, several generations into that experience. People still identify with their Norwegian ancestry, but we also have many people who identify with other aspects of our program. We have people who are very into woodworking and maybe don't have any Norwegian ancestry at all. Well, we're not going to turn them away. We want them to take part of this as well. And we also have people who are very interested in contemporary Norway and the ideals of Norway, what systems are they advocating for, things like that. And so the Bold Future is to really look at how we can build upon what we have, but to connect to new generations as well and new audiences. So our campaign has been focused on two projects, one of which is essentially completed. And these projects were part of an overall master plan that was developed by Snøhetta. Snøhetta is an architectural design firm with its roots in Norway. Some of the most notable projects, if any of you have been to Norway, the building on the left there is the National Opera and Ballet. It's right in downtown Oslo in the harbor. And as you can see from this slide, you can literally walk up on the roof of this building, get this wonderful view of the waterway right there on the fjord and that. So I've been there a couple times. Each time I've had to walk up on the roof to check things out. It's kind of a pilgrimage to do that. Locally, here in the United States, they've done things such as in downtown New York, they redid Times Square to make it much more pedestrian friendly. They have done projects such as the 9/11 pavilion at Ground Zero in New York. They've done projects large and small throughout the United States. We got interested in them because of their Norwegian roots. And we were kind of thrilled with the people that we worked with, because a couple of them actually had connections to Iowa. The woman that you see seated here in the center of the slide with the dark hair, her name is Michelle Delk, and she's originally from Floyd, Iowa. Any of us who've driven from Decorah to Des Moines probably have driven through Floyd, Iowa, outside of Charles City. She is a landscape architect, and she's actually involved with the current work that we have going on right now, the landscape component of this project. This gentleman up here leaning on the table, Takeshi Tournier, he was a student, an international student who came to the United States as a high schooler, and he ended up studying in Hawkeye, Iowa, down in Fayette County. And of course, his exchange family brought him up to Decorah and Vesterheim. So they both had a familiarization with this area, which is kind of a quirky part of this. The master plan involved staff involvement, trustee involvement, other partners as well, and thinking about how the campus needed to be reconfigured in ways to think about for the long term. And I mean, we're looking at like decades of potential development with this, recognizing not only the historical integrity of what we have, but also new opportunities as well. So the first project that we focused on was Vesterheim Heritage Park. And if you've been driving down by Vesterheim anytime in the last 2 years or so, you know that this was a construction project for us, really an outdoor landscape project that we focused on a couple different things. First of all, we wanted to make the park more accessible to the public so that people could venture out and see the historic buildings that are on the north side of our campus. Many of those buildings were moved in here in the 1970s, but there are some like the Painter Burnett's Mill that have been here that it's in its original location. So accessibility was a component of this. We also wanted to create a more park-like setting. So we brought in about 4 semi-loads of perennials. We brought in about 100 new trees onto the site. We did other landscaping features to make that a more like a downtown green space. And I think certainly when I've talked with people in the community about this project, people have gotten really excited and enjoy using the park for purposes other than just a museum visit. So I know this last spring at prom, we had a lot of people here for prom photos at the Vesterheim Heritage Park. So I'm going to take that as a positive endorsement in a way. This kind of gets us to one of our first sustainability goals, and that is site and landscape. We worked very closely with a landscape design firm out of the Twin Cities, Damon Farber Landscape Architects, to help us with this. And we had some design goals for the project, but we also said, let's see what we can do as far as some sustainability goals as well. We're of course in the watershed for the Upper Iowa River. And so we wanted to look at how we could reduce runoff that would potentially end up in the river system. So we got a grant from the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship to help in a couple key areas, one of which was to put in some permeable paving systems at different parts in the project. That allows for water to not just run directly off, but to be slowly absorbed and slowly released. So there's two areas, a plaza down by the mill that's a permeable paver system, and also up by the museum, there is a ship-shaped plaza called the Restoration Plaza that uses that permeable paver system. This was also a soils project for us where we wanted to certainly grow plants here on this property, but by improving the soils, improving the overall soil health, that also helped to control runoff. Having good soils helps to control water from just washing away. We also incorporated a number of native plantings within the park. One of the things that you may drive by today and you're thinking like, are they going to mow their grass? We're using a no-mow fescue for certain sections of our park here. We're experimenting with that. Again, just to kind of reduce maintenance, but also to help to improve kind of the overall quality. The lighting systems in this park are a downward facing light system that provides for security for people who want to use the park after hours, but also we're trying not to contribute to overall light pollution within the town itself. So that's some things that were some of the design goals from a sustainability aspect within the park itself. Now, the other project that if you drive by the museum right now, we're in the process of constructing this structure right now, and this is called Vesterheim Commons. And Vesterheim Commons is going to meet a couple of different needs for the museum and for Decorah at large. This serves as a public gathering space for the museum where we can host different types of events. It's going to have a small exhibition gallery for changing exhibits. And then up on the third floor, we're actually going to have a digital production studio as well. The pandemic really saw a growth in our online programming. And so now we're in the process of investing in that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the design of this structure as well. This, of course, was the site of the former Carey's Machine and Welding Shop. And this building was taken down at the end of February. We worked very closely through the design process with the Decorah's Historic Preservation Commission, not only in the design of Heritage Park, but also addressing this site as well. We felt that although the building was, had some history here, it was in such a condition where it would have been impossible for us to make it suit our needs, what we were looking at for this. And so it made much more sense to tear the building down and start over with a kind of a clean slate here. That wasn't without controversy. There were certainly some comments within social media about, the tear down of this building. But again, we tried to work very closely with the city of Decorah, the Historic Preservation Commission, all those entities to come up with an approach that made sense here. So this is the project area for Vesterheim Commons. One building that we have left in place is the Dayton House. This is one of the oldest buildings in downtown Decorah. It dates back to the 1850s, part of the original streetscape of the town. And this is an artist concept, an earlier artist concept of that space. We made the approach here to not try to replicate the other commercial street fronts that you see in Decorah. We felt like this was a building that as I mentioned, with strong roots, bold future, we're also looking towards contemporary Norway as well. And so we've went for a much cleaner type of design here. This looks very uniform as far as the brick here on this building. It's a buff colored brick, but it's actually much more modeled in appearance when I've seen the mock-ups for this. It includes mass timber construction that I'll talk about in a little bit, and glass in selected areas of the building. And those are all related to some of our sustainability goals of this project as well. This will serve as the new front door for the campus. And we've also looked at this as having a landscape component as well. So the project of Heritage Park kind of continues in this building project, extending Heritage Park right up to Water Street. So the building, this is a view of that building at night. Perhaps an event is going on inside. You'll notice the marquee of this building, a wood marquee that projects out. We were thinking about how to make this building distinctive, and one of the ideas, we could either push the building back into our campus or project out. And if you look on Water Street today, there's a number of buildings that have marquees that project out, I think like the Sugar Bowl and other entities like that, where they project out over the sidewalk. We wanted to do something similar to that to mark that arrival space. This is a wood marquee, though. It's a glue laminated timber product that we're using for this. And so in this building itself, some of our goals here were to really think about how we design the building from the outset to make it as efficient as possible. And the marquee actually plays a key role in that. It provides shading for that first floor event space. So, this time of year when the sun is high in the sky, it provides shading in there so we can lower our cooling costs inside of the building. Whereas when we get to 6 months from now in the wintertime, when the sun is low in the sky, it's going to allow light to come into that space to help with, a kind of a passive solar approach, I guess you could say, in helping to warm that space and utilize the daylight where it's most needed. This is, as it's new construction, we're looking at this, of course, using high efficiency HVAC systems throughout the building. They're all strategically located up on the second floor of the building. I'll show you a cutaway of the building in just a second here. And just like any new construction, a lot of high performance materials for energy efficiency is thought into this as well. One of the components that we really looked at with this was also daylight modeling. We worked with a company called Atelier 10 that looked at some of our sustainability goals for the project. And one of them was how to best use daylighting within this building, recognizing that it's a space where we're going to display some museum collections from time to time. And that's typically in a museum setting, you want to really control and restrict daylight because that has a negative effect on objects. If you think about your own home, like your curtains, they have a south facing window over time, they'll just kind of shred over time because of the sunlight wearing them out or fading on a piece of wood furniture. Well, we had to think carefully about the positioning of our windows related to areas where we were going to exhibit and store collections so that they were kept below a certain light level. And so Atelier 10 helped us in that, looking at how daylight would penetrate into this building over the course of the year. But then also on the positive side, thinking about how we could use that daylight to also lower the amount of energy we would have to use in just normal lighting of the, of the facility during normal business hours. So that was a component of this project. This is a cutaway showing Vesterheim Commons. On the right is Water Street. And on the left is the backside of the building towards Vesterheim Heritage Park. On this first level, we have that flexible event space down here. And this is designed in such a way that it can be reconfigured for a number of different purposes. Adjacent to this is a small catering kitchen so that we can use local restaurants to come in, and if we wanted to serve a banquet in here, they could use this space. We didn't really want to build our own kind of standalone coffee shop or restaurant in this space because we felt like we didn't want to compete with the other businesses in town here. But we did want to create a space that if we wanted to host an event here, that somebody could come in. We've even in the site design created a pull-out in the back where if we wanted to bring a food truck in, we could do that as well. And I think about like the taco trunk that we sometimes see up by Fisk Farm and Home. Norway has a thing on Fridays where they have a thing called Taco Fredag, and people, it's sort of a thing in Norway today where people will eat tacos on Friday. So having tacos on the site here may be a future opportunity for us sometimes on a Friday. Who knows? Restrooms are on this site as well. There's 3 individual restrooms that people can use, gender neutral restrooms. And then there's accessibility and entrance into the museum store on the first floor of this building. As you go up the stairs or use the elevator, you come up onto the second level. There is a public gallery space here where we can do small exhibitions. This is also where all of the mechanical systems for the building are housed on the south side of the building. And then off the north side, there is a terrace that overlooks Heritage Park. And with stairs that lead down to a patio out back where we can also host events. And then up at the third floor, we have some public, just sort of lounging, browsing kind of areas, a collections access space that I'll talk about in more detail, a digital production studio, and also a few staff offices up here on this third level. We packed a lot of functionality into about 7,900 square foot. I kind of call it a Swiss Army knife of a building. It's got all kinds of little functions in a small package here. It's basically on the same footprint as what the Carrie's Machine welding shop was originally. So this is a concept view of that first floor flexible event space. This is, in this case, set up, let's say at Nordic Fest, when we have a number of different folk art demonstrators on site. So you have somebody here at a loom demonstrating weaving, or you have somebody over here demonstrating wood carving, things like that. It's going to be a polished concrete floor. We're looking at having an image of Norway imprinted into the floor itself. It'll allow for easy cleanup. So if we spill paint or different things like that, it should make for a relatively easy kind of cleanup. You'll see the Oculus in the center here. I'll talk about that in more detail in just a minute. So this is kind of a view from Water Street, kind of looking to the northwest. This is another view of that same space, kind of at the opposite side of the room, looking to the northeast. You can see the pass-through for the catering kitchen back here, and also the corridor that leads you out to Heritage Park. And back in this area is where the restrooms would be. So it provides restrooms not only for this level, but also for people who are out enjoying Heritage Park itself. In this case, we've set up the room for a lecture. So somebody, content specialist talking about some of the collections that we have here. Vesterheim has over 33,000 objects in its collections, ranging as things as small as a thimble up to the historic buildings that we have on our property here. We're the largest repository you're going to find in the United States of objects related to the Norwegian immigrant story. Going up to the second level, you can see this Oculus opens up that allows you to look back down to that first floor. And you start to see also the kind of the bones of the building. This is a mass timber construction that we're using for this building. That's going to be the main structural component. So these are all glue laminated timbers. I think this is only the second building in the state of Iowa to use this construction technique. And showing the second floor, the exhibition gallery space here. Again, this is designed so that we can change this out with different exhibits over time. You can see people here at the edge of the Oculus. This again provides that view down. And where the woman is holding the baby, she's looking out the window to the north. This is an area where we do have some light coming into this gallery space, but it's north facing light. So it's not direct sunlight. It's a nice indirect light that comes into this space. This building connects to the existing Westby Torgerson building on all 3 levels. So the first floor connects to the museum store. The second floor connects to our curatorial offices, and then the third floor connects to our folk art school classrooms up on that level. The mass timber construction allows you to see the, basically the structure of the building itself. And one thing that we're intrigued about with this particular approach is that it lowers the amount of embodied carbon within the structure itself. Mass timber is a sustainable process as far as we're using softwoods that are easy to regrow. We're using it as the main building framework because we're using that rather than other building components, it allows us to use a lighter footing for the building, thereby using less concrete for that component of the building, which is also a big eater of carbon. And it also, the mass timber just creates a warmth and really kind of fits our identity as a museum and folk art school. If you think about the historic buildings that we have on site made from wood, we teach classes in, carving kuba stools and wood carved figures and all kinds of things like that. We use wood in a lot of our daily activities here. And so it just seems to fit with our identity as well. So we're excited about that. The mass timber they're currently being manufactured for us up in Albert Lea, Minnesota. And they'll be shipped down later this summer and start to erect that. So I kind of imagine almost like a barn raising as far as the framework for this building going up. We've been really mindful too about the design of this building and the construction of this building to use local contractors and locally sourced materials where possible. Our general contractor is McGough Construction, which has offices up in Minnesota and here in Iowa. But all of our subcontractors are essentially local subcontractors. So like the concrete that we do have in this building is Wicks Construction here in Decorah. As I mentioned, the timber is coming from Albert Lea, Minnesota. The brick for the building, kind of the closest brick yard for us that would meet our needs is down in Adel, Iowa, but still an Iowa-based product. So by having locally sourced materials where possible as well, that lowers transportation costs. And that's kind of important right now this summer with the way gas prices are, but it lowers transportation costs and also lowers the amount of carbon usage in just getting the materials on site here as well. So that was a factor in our design. The third floor of the building has a couple key components. As I mentioned, there's a sort of a public area over on the north side of the building where people can just sort of relax. They can enjoy a view out on Heritage Park. We have this collections access space in the center, and then our digital production studio over here towards Water Street. The digital program, we all know what this means. This was the digital program was really born out of the pandemic. Our mode of operating prior to March of 2020 was on-site classes where students would come and take a carving class or a painting class, or people would come on site to visit the museum and enjoy that. Well, of course, the pandemic hit and it forced us for quite a period of time to close our doors where we couldn't let people come on site for safety. And so our staff got creative in thinking about how we could continue to reach out to people. And so we started in July of 2020 with just a very basic sort of online series of programs, painting classes. We started to programs that talked about our collections that we have. And over time, we found that there was this huge audience out there. Of course, everybody was cooped up in 2020, couldn't go anywhere. And so we had this audience that was not only from the region, but also nationwide, and even audiences. We were getting people who were taking our programs from Australia and South Africa and other parts of the world as well. And so without the pandemic, we might not have made that leap to having a digital program. And now it's a key component of our outreach. It allows us to reach people in new ways, but it's not a substitute. We are going back to face-to-face classes. We're obviously open again for museum visits, but it's just another tool we can use to reach audiences. And so we said, rather than just sort of doing this on the fly in a sense, I mean, we've done more than that in that regard, but let's invest in that and develop a more robust digital production space that we can use to push content out to different audiences. The other component on this third floor is a collections access space. If any of you have taken a folk art school class here at Vesterheim, a component that makes us different from other folk art schools is our collection. You can go to other places and take a carving class or a weaving class or woodworking class. But what we have is the actual objects as well. So if you're taking Harley Refsall is sort of a legendary wood carver here in the Decorah area. you would have a class maybe from him, but you would also have that access to our collections where you see examples of wood carved figures from, even 100 years ago that we have in our collection. So it provides that connection to the past. We look at this space then as a place where students in our folk art school could come to learn more about our collections. We also see this as a space where other groups could use this as well. And one group that we're very excited about coming up this summer is Viking River Cruises. Viking Cruises is going to be starting on the Mississippi this summer. Our first scheduled visit for them is in August, and they plan to make their first stop here in Decorah. And then with that, they would tour the museum, perhaps take a mini folk art class, but also be in the community. So they may be eating in local restaurants, shopping in the local stores here as well. So it's a great economic benefit for the local community. And they're going to, like I said, start in August, and they're going through October with a series of, I think, 8 different visits here to Decorah. Each visit will probably have between, up to 140 to 150 or so visitors who are coming to Decorah specifically. The boat itself docks in La Crosse, and then they take a bus down here to Decorah. They're not coming up the upper Iowa, obviously, in a Viking cruise ship, but they're gonna, unless they all had canoes, I guess. So, but they'll take the bus down here, tour the museum, tour the town, and then in that afternoon, take the bus back to La Crosse where they continue on their journey. So that's kind of where we're at with our project and where we're going with it. So I think I'll just stop sharing my screen and see if there's questions.
Thank you so much. So we've got a nice sized group. If people want to unmute and ask their questions, that's great. Otherwise, feel free to type them in the chat and I can read them out for us.
Chris, this is Jim Martin Schramm. Thank you. That was really a wonderful presentation. So interesting, so exciting. Have you given this presentation to other groups within Decorah, like the Chamber of Commerce, for example?
I've given it to, I don't know if I've given it to the Chamber. I've given it to the Decorah Rotary Club.
Okay, yeah.
I've given it to I'm a member of the Decorah Torska Kluben.
Yeah.
I've given it to that group. I'm always available if people want to learn more about this project. I'm happy to.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask is because, I chair the Decorah Sustainability Commission. And, your presentation is exactly connecting with multiple points in Decorah Sustainability Plan. And about every 3 months, we have a meeting online, meeting of community leaders. And I don't think we have something set up for our next meeting. And I might talk to Mayor Borowski, but I wanted to make sure this was something you'd be interested in.
I'd be happy to do it.
Be a similar time frame.
Yep.
Okay, great. Really just so impressed by all of the various sustainability features and the attention to energy as well. I assume there's no integrated renewable energy system with the building.
Not at this point. We had looked at the idea of, let's say, rooftop solar for the building as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other component of this, the other design component of this was just budget, and we're trying to meet a certain target for building this. It's not to say the systems that we're looking at are kind of evolving into an electric campus. And so it wouldn't say that down the road we couldn't look at, the possibility of adding that as a component. But right now we were trying to meet also a budget.
Yeah, sure.
So,
we don't have to go down this road much further, but lots of folks who were on this call today or in this session are also familiar with something called third-party power purchase agreements, where you don't have to front the capital, someone else does, and you just agree to buy the power.
Yep.
That sort of depends on what kind of roof capacity you have and whether it's designed to hold that load. But just so that you're aware that's probably another option for you as well going down the road.
Yep. I'm a member of Good Shepherd Church, and we're looking at a power purchase agreement there for some.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm a little familiar with them now. Yep. We looked briefly also at geothermal for this structure as well, but there were, one of the problems with that was just the condition of the underlying soils and rock, and also the proximity of other wells to us that just didn't make it a very practical consideration for us, but it was discussed in our design intent as well. So we had to kind of mate the sustainability goals to what we could accomplish with the project. So. Other questions?
I have a question about sound. How will having the Oculus in the middle of the like flexible community space, will that sound sort of bounce around and with happy sound?
There's some acoustic treatment to the building as well. We had a sound engineering team also looking at the build. I didn't really talk about that, but we did have a sound engineering consultant look at that as well to make sure that it wasn't too lively. That if you had a big event in there, that it so there's baffles and things like that also incorporated into the design to help with that. One thing that we are looking at too, like up on that third floor with our digital production studio, there's some additional soundproofing within that space as well, simply because, you get big trucks rolling down Water Street or things like that. And if we were doing an interview of somebody, you'd want to try to control that sound quality. That's a part of our building that doesn't have windows, again, because we're trying to really control the lighting and sound, or if we're going to do a taped interview or something like that.
Chris, I have another question. Your focus today was on the new building, and I think you said it's around how many square feet? 8,000?
7,900 or so.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Do you have an estimate of the size of the adjacent building? How many square feet are in that? The building that it connects to?
The building that it connects to, I don't have it off the top of my head. I know it's well over, probably, it's over 12,000. It's probably closer to 20, because there's also a collection storage tower that's kind of off the back side of the building. So
sure.
It's considerably bigger.
The reason I bring this up is because Alliant Energy, your electric utility, has a energy audit program for facilities that are larger than 5,000 square feet. And it involves, as far as I know, a free product from Michael's Energy in La Crosse, and they come and they check out all of your 15, 20,000 square feet and try to identify energy efficiency, energy saving opportunities. And so if you haven't availed yourself of that, you may want to do so, and I'd be happy to help you further with that if you're interested.
Okay. I think we've done a little bit. I'd have to go back in my notes, but I think we did have our architectural team. I should mention too, our architectural team includes Snohetta as the design architect for this part of the project. So they're sort of the overall concept, but then our sort of architect of record, the architect who holds the contract is BNIM, and they're based out of Des Moines. Okay. And that, in some of our earlier discussions, we talked about an energy audit, I think very similar to that, involving Alliant. And I think it might have been just focused on this particular building, but not looking more broadly. So
yeah. So I'm just saying, with regard to the rest of your campus, there may be some real opportunities there. Alliant has very high electricity rates, and as a result, there are a lot of efficiency measures that have short paybacks. And once they're paid back, they have long dividends. And what's not to like about that?
Well, that's just money that we can save and we can put into some other use at the museum.
Yeah,
so that makes good sense to me. Yep.
Yeah, Chris, I have a quick question. This is Andy Johnson. I think I might have missed in part details, but on the mechanical systems of your new building, are you incorporating heat pumps? Is it entirely electric, or are you also going to be using natural gas some for heating the building? What are the specifics there?
We're using, let me see. We are using kind of a hybrid system that does use natural gas as well in this. And we are, it's there's an acronym for it. VFR, I want to say, is what we're using. I'm not as well versed on that as some of my other colleagues on staff. So,
okay, is there a separate contractor than the architect that deals with all the mechanical systems, or is it the other group that you just
yeah,
mentioned?
we have the mechanical engineer for this is Morrissey Engineering, who has been involved with our planning for that.
Okay,
I could get you that information about how the specifics on that. So,
okay, yeah.
Andy, I think it's probably similar to what the high school is doing. The high school is a hybrid between geothermal and what is it called? Variable refrigerant flow, where you're using refrigerant gases to transfer energy from one part of the building to another part of the building. I think that's probably what Chris is. It's a technology that's used a lot in Asia and less in the United States, but it is used here in Decorah at the high school.
That's I think when in our discussions we talked about that this mechanical system was similar to the high schools, and then it was it's VRF or VFR. That's what the approach we've been using there. So I'm not a mechanical engineer if you haven't figured that out. So, but I can find out that information in more detail if you want to know. So. Other questions?
Since no one's jumping in, I'll also ask about returning quickly to the solar, which I understand you got a lot on your plate, but of course it's such a economical technology, sustainable these days. Do you know if your architects then in designing the building, is the roof solar ready? And have you also looked at the rest of the rooftops of your other buildings to determine sort of any feasibility for solar and the amount that could fit there? You know, at some point when you might put out a call for proposals or whatever that may be.
I know we did look at the Westby building for that capacity. And I know that was a factor that was considered in the design of this building as well, is the idea that down the road, there may be that potential that we would want to add a rooftop solar component to this building.
So nothing precludes that on top of this new building.
No, I don't think so. I think I think it was built strong enough that we could do that kind of thing. And and it was just, again, it was just in our, again, we were trying to meet a certain budget, and that just was something that kind of fell by the wayside at that point, and we couldn't quite make that leap. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does fit with our, with Vesterheim, in that we want to have a more strong connection to contemporary Norway, and the idea of, Norway is a country where certainly it's sort of a mixed bag, and they do have their offshore oil fields that has been a huge part of their wealth, but they're also looking at ways to become a much more sustainable country as well. And so we're looking to that in sort of our philosophy here. So it's not to say we're done with this, but it's something we're looking at.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, don't hesitate to be in touch if you'd like any more resources. We work a lot with solar, including with institutions, and the idea Jim mentioned of a PPA, you certainly wouldn't have to go that route, but as a nonprofit, you potentially get the benefits then of tax credits rolling through whoever the developer may be offering the PPA.
Yep.
And there are multiple local solar providers who are also developers and offering PPAs. One of them's on this call right here. So, you'd have some good opportunities there. Last quick comment on that. Those federal tax credits that are still available now won't, barring further congressional action, which we're all hoping for, but if that doesn't happen, are going away within a couple of years, basically. So,
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's a timeline to consider.
Yeah, I know that, like was mentioning, I'm a member of Good Shepherd here, and that was a consideration in our implementation of that, was knowing that those were kind of sunsetting, so.
Mhm.
Well, I guess the final thing I would just say is with this project, it's, this is sort of our second phase in looking at the development of the campus. We have other projects we have in mind down the road. We want to do some work on our main museum building. We have some other projects we're looking at down the road, but of course, it's all kind of related to time and budget allowed. But this particular project, the Vesterheim Commons project, we're anticipating will be completed in somewhere in the first quarter of 2023. And so our intent is to open the project or open the building to the public in the spring of 2023.
Right, anyone have any last questions? Last call for questions? All
No,
right.
I just want to say how much I appreciate Chris taking the time to present this webinar for us, and how excited I am to see this happening in Decorah. It's terrific.
We think it's going to be a great asset for the community, and I mean, we're in it for the long haul here, and so we want to be here for years to come, providing, we feel like we're an important tourism destination for the community, and certainly a big part of the community's identity. So we're trying to make the right approach.
I see Amy Buska, you've got a question?
Yeah, just a sort of curiosity, did you calculate a contrafactual cost? In other words, if this costs you X dollars per square foot, what would it have cost you to do, let's say, with steel instead of the wood?
I know that our engineering team did look at some of that. I think it was just also, I don't remember if we compared the dollars and cents that specifically, but we were looking at it more from the standpoint of as a way of accomplishing those sustainability goals, and felt that it just fit us better for the design of the building rather than going with structural steel for the building. And I think maybe that was kind of because the adjacent Westby building, it used to be a factory. I mean, its early days was a factory in Decorah, but if you look at the structure of that building, it's post and beam construction. I mean, it's heavy duty kind of, and we felt, this is more of a modern take on that, but it's kind of fits with that. So I don't think we got down to this. We did some cost analysis on it, but we just didn't, we felt like this was just fit with who we were. So.
Great, thank you.
All righty, well, thank you much. And certainly if you ever have any questions in more detail, feel free to reach me. cjohnson@vesterheim.org is my email, or just stop on by. I'm happy to visit with you more about this project. I've been talking to a lot of groups. And so if there's other, like Jim had mentioned, a group that maybe I could present to, if there's other groups you think would like to be hearing about this, I'd be happy to talk about it too, as well. I think it's important that the community know about it and what it's going to provide for the community. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right.
Have a good rest of your day.
You bet.
Yep.